Look down at your hands right now. If your nails are bare, or painted that safe beige you were told suits a woman your age, I need you to stay with me. Because that one quiet choice may be adding 10 years to your hands. I know. I did it for almost a decade. The shade they sold me as tasteful was the very shade draining the life out of my skin. There is a color old Hollywood guarded under studio lights back in 1952 that does the exact opposite. And I promise you already own something close to it. For years, I believed my hands were simply old and there was nothing a bottle of polish could fix. That was the lie. It was never my hands. It was the color sitting on top of them. I still remember the moment it hit me. I was at my niece's wedding, standing in the receiving line, and someone took a photo of me holding a glass of champagne. When I saw that picture later, I didn't look at my dress or my hair. I stared at my hand wrapped around that glass. It looked gray, lifeless, like it belonged to someone 20 years older than the woman I felt like inside. And my nails, painted in that age-appropriate mushroom nude the counterwoman swore was elegant, made the whole thing worse. They disappeared into my skin like fog. That photograph sent me down a rabbit hole I never climbed back out of. I started reading color analysis books, dermatology papers, old grooming manuals from the 1940s and 50s that most people have never opened, makeup archives, and what I found made me angry, then it made me free. Because the rules I'd been handed about what an older woman should wear on her nails were not built to flatter me. They were built to make me quiet, small, easy to overlook. So here is what we are going to do together. I am going to walk you through 7 shades that genuinely make aging hands look younger, sometimes shockingly so, and I'm going to explain the science and the history behind every single one, not opinions, reasons. And by the end, I'll hand you the one shade Hollywood used to brighten a leading lady's hands on camera, the shade that got buried under decades of beige advice aimed at women exactly our age. You will not need to buy a whole new collection. Most of what I'm about to tell you, you can do this week with a bottle you already have in your drawer. Let's start with the biggest lie of them all, because it's the one that fooled me longest. I was told that as I got older, my safest bet was nude. Match the polish to my skin, keep it invisible. Keep it neutral. Nothing that draws the eye. And it sounds so reasonable, doesn't it? It sounds mature, tasteful. The woman at the beauty counter said it with such warm authority that I never questioned her. I bought the beige. I bought the taupe. I bought the pale putty color she called sophisticated. And I wore those shades for years while my hands slowly vanished. Here is what nobody explained to me. When you match your polish exactly to aging skin, you don't create elegance. You create a flat, uniform wash of color with no contrast and no light, and skin over 60 already has less of both. As we age, the outer layer of skin thins, we lose the fat pad under the surface, and the tone often shifts sallow or grayish because collagen breaks down and circulation slows. That's not vanity talk, that's dermatology. So when you paint your nails the same dull tone as that thinning skin, you erase the one small point of brightness a hand can have. You blend the nail into the hand and the hand into nothing. The fix is not a bigger, louder color. The fix is 1 degree of difference. Instead of matching your skin, you go 1 shade brighter and, most importantly, 1 degree cooler and pinker than your natural tone. This is the shade I call rose beige, and it is the first of the 7. It reads as a nude from across the room, so it feels safe. But up close, it carries a whisper of cool pink that lifts the skin around it and makes your fingers look longer and fresher. The counterwoman sold me a beige that matched my skin. What I actually needed was a beige that gently disagreed with it. Try it yourself. Hold your hand out and really look. If your polish disappears completely, it's aging you. You want a shade that makes your nail look like the cleanest, healthiest part of your hand, not a piece of it that got camouflaged. But here's the question that kept me up at night once I understood the nude trap. If they were wrong about nude, what else were they wrong about? Because there was a second rule I'd been following just as faithfully, and it turned out to be doing even more damage. The second rule was this. If you want to look polished and grown up, go dark and dramatic, deep wine, oxblood, near black cherry, vampy burgundy. Every autumn the magazines told me a mature woman looks expensive in a dark, moody red, and I believed them. I felt so elegant painting on that deep wine color. I thought it made me look like I had my life together. Then I looked at the photos. A very dark polish on an aging hand does something cruel. It creates the harshest possible contrast between the deep color and the pale, thinning skin around it. And contrast is the enemy here, because our eyes are drawn straight to it. The darker the polish, the more your eye jumps to every crepey line, every raised vein, every brown spot near the nail. The polish becomes a spotlight, and it points directly at the parts of the hand that read as age. I had been aiming that spotlight at myself for years and calling it sophistication. There's a reason this happens, and it comes down to how our eyes read light and shadow. A dark shade sitting against light skin reads almost like a hole, a heavy anchor at the end of each finger. It shortens the look of the nail, it emphasizes the knuckle, and it makes the whole hand look heavier and older. I tested this with my own two hands, one painted deep burgundy, one painted a clear, brightened red, photographed side by side in the same light. The dark hand looked like my mother's. The bright hand looked like mine at 50. So the second of the 7 shades is a true, clean red with a cool undertone. Not a brick red, not a rusty red, a red that leans very slightly toward blue and berry. This kind of red doesn't fight your skin, it lifts it, and I'll tell you exactly why later, because the science behind it is the heart of the whole secret I promised you. For now, just know that trading a heavy dark shade for a clear, cool red can take years off a hand instantly. It costs you nothing but a different bottle. And once I understood that darkness was the problem and not the answer, I finally started asking the real question. But before I get there, I want to share something that took all of this even further for me. Everything I've been telling you about color, contrast, and the rules that were quietly written to shrink us, I went so much deeper on all of it in my digital books. Style Reset, Beyond the Basics, and The Style System. Together, they walk you through the full framework I built after years of research, not just for nails, but for every visible choice that either adds years or takes them away. If you're the kind of woman who wants the whole picture, not just the clips, all 3 are available for $77, and you'll find the link in the description. Thousands of women have already used them to rethink what they were told was appropriate and to stop obeying a dress code designed to make them disappear. Now, back to that real question. Because it changed everything about how I see the rules we were handed. Not, what color is age appropriate? That question was the trap all along. The real question was, who decided what was appropriate for me? And what did they get out of my believing it? Because here is where it stops being about polish and starts being about something that made me furious. Think about who profits when an older woman decides she should be invisible. The beauty industry makes enormous money from women under 40. Those are the faces on the ads, the shades in the marketing, the trends in the magazines. Women our age were quietly handed a different menu. Keep it neutral, keep it modest, don't draw attention, act your age. And that language, act your age, was never about taste. It was about training us to expect less, to ask for less, to take up less space, so the shelves and the spotlight could stay pointed at someone younger. We were sold beige and told it was dignity. We were sold invisibility and told it was class. I fell for it because it came wrapped in kindness. The saleswomen weren't cruel. They were repeating what they'd been taught, the same way I repeated it to my sister for years. God forgive me. The rule got passed down like an heirloom, and none of us stopped to notice it was built to shrink us. When I finally saw it, I felt robbed. Robbed of a decade of photographs where I look faded because I obeyed a color code written to keep women like me in the background. But being angry doesn't lift your hands. Knowing better does. So, let me give you the shade that undid the most damage for me. And it's one almost no one recommends to women over 60, which tells you everything. The 3rd shade is lavender. Soft, dusty, grayed-off lilac. I can already hear you. Lavender? At my age? Isn't that a color for a teenager's bedroom? That's exactly the reaction they counted on. That reaction is why this shade stayed a secret from us. But listen to the science, because it changed my mind completely. As skin ages, it yellows. This is real, and it's measurable. It happens through a process called glycation, where sugars in the body attach to collagen and stiffen it, giving older skin a sallow, yellowed cast, and it's been studied and documented by dermatology researchers for years. So aging hands tend to drift toward yellow. Now think back to the color wheel you learned as a child. What sits directly opposite yellow? Purple. And when you place a color next to its opposite, each one cancels the other out. That is why a soft lavender polish is almost magic on an older hand. The purple undertone neutralizes the yellow in your skin, and suddenly your skin looks clearer, cooler, fresher, and younger, without you touching your skin at all. I wore lavender to lunch with a friend I hadn't seen in a year, a friend who never misses a chance to comment, and she grabbed my hand and asked what I'd done differently. She thought I'd had something done. It was a $4 bottle of dusty lilac. That's the power of a complementary color working for you instead of against you. And this is the moment I know some of you are pulling back a little. I can feel it. You're thinking this all sounds fine for a woman with money to burn on a shelf full of polish, or a woman with young, slim, steady hands, or someone who can afford a manicure every 2 weeks. So let me stop and talk to you directly. Because I was you, counting every dollar. Sure, this kind of thing was for other women. Here is the truth. You do not need to buy a single new bottle to start. Go to your bathroom drawer, the little basket where old polishes go to die, and pull every one of them out into good daylight, not bathroom light, real light from a window. I want you to sort them into 2 piles using one test. Hold each bottle against the back of your hand. If the color makes your skin look grayer, more tired, or more yellow, that goes in the discard pile no matter how much you paid for it or how fancy the name is. If the color makes your skin look brighter, cleaner, or pinker, that's a keeper. I did this at my own kitchen table, and I discovered I already owned 2 shades that flattered me and 6 that had been quietly aging me for years. I'd just been reaching for the wrong ones because the bottles were prettier or newer, and if all you own is dark, don't despair, because there's a trick that costs nothing. Take that dark red you love and apply just 1 thin coat instead of 2 or 3. 1 sheer coat turns a heavy, aging, vampy shade into a soft, see-through stain that lets your natural nail glow through. Sheer is younger than opaque, almost always, because sheerness lets light pass, and light is what aging hands are starving for. That's the whole secret to the 4th shade, and you can do it tonight with what's already sitting in that basket. Which brings me to that 4th shade properly. A milky, sheer pink, not a solid bubblegum pink, not an opaque frost, but a translucent, milky rose you can almost see through. This is the closest thing to a fountain of youth I have found in a bottle, and here's why it works. A milky, sheer pink mimics the look of a healthy, well-circulated nail bed, the kind you had at 30 when blood flowed easily to your fingertips. As we age, circulation to the extremities slows, and nail beds lose that natural pink flush and start to look bluish or dull. A sheer milky pink puts that youthful flush right back on the surface, and because it's translucent, it never creates the harsh contrast that darker shades do. It's the shade that makes a hand look cared for, healthy, and years younger, and it forgives everything, including ridges and uneven length. But the milky pink taught me something else, something that exposed yet another lie I'd been living by, and this one might be the most expensive mistake of all. For decades, I reached for shimmer, frost, anything with a metallic sheen, because I thought sparkle red is glamorous and festive, especially for the holidays or a special dinner. Every older woman I knew owned a frosty pink or a pearly silver. We passed them around like they were the sophisticated choice. And they are quietly terrible for aging hands. And I mean it. Here's the problem with frost and heavy shimmer on an older nail. As we age, our nails develop vertical ridges. This is completely normal, and it happens to nearly everyone over 60 because nail growth slows and the surface loses its smooth, even texture. A shimmery or frosted polish is full of tiny reflective particles, and those particles catch the light and settle into every ridge, tracing each groove and lifting it, so the light literally highlights the texture you'd rather soften. Frost doesn't hide an aging nail. It draws a glittering outline around everything that makes it look old. I wasted money for years on pearly shades that were sabotaging me under every overhead light in every restaurant. So the 5th shade throws the frost away and replaces it with a warm, creamy peach coral in a soft, smooth finish. A cream formula, not a shimmer, because a smooth cream reflects light in one even sheet and glosses right over those ridges instead of diving into them. And the peach coral tone does something wonderful for the skin, especially if your hands have gone cool or gray or a little blue with age. Warm coral pushes warmth and blood flow color back into the whole hand. It's the shade of a hand that just came in from a summer afternoon, where dark burgundy drained me and frost betrayed me, a creamy, warm coral made my hands look alive. And it works on nearly every skin tone because peach sits right in the middle, warm enough to flatter without turning brassy. Now, I know some of you run cool, not warm, and you're wondering where your shade is. That's the sixth one, and it's a soft, dusty berry, a muted raspberry with a rose-brown edge. Think of it as the grown-up cousin of the milky pink, with a little more color and confidence for when you want your hands to be noticed at a dinner or a gathering. It carries just enough of that cool berry tone to counteract yellow like the lavender does, but it reads as a rich, wearable, everyday color rather than anything trendy. A dusty berry is the shade I reach for when I want to look put together but not fussy, and it flatters cool and neutral skin beautifully. That's 6 shades, each one chosen for a reason, each one undoing a rule that was quietly aging us. But I promised you a 7th, the one Hollywood guarded, the one that got buried under all that beige advice. And to give it to you properly, I have to take you back to 1952, into a story most women our age were never told. In 1952, a cosmetics man named Charles Revson, the force behind Revlon, released a shade and a campaign that became one of the most famous in the history of beauty. The shade was called Fire and Ice. The next year came its sister, Cherries in the Snow, and these were not ordinary reds. They were built on a very particular principle that studio makeup artists already understood and that most women were never taught. They were blue-based reds, cool reds. Reds with a hidden note of blue underneath the red, and that blue undertone is the whole secret. Here is why the studios loved a blue-based red under those brutal lights. That cool blue undertone does 2 things at once. First, remember the color wheel. Yellow's opposite is purple, and blue is right there beside purple on the cool side, so a blue-red carries that same yellow-canceling power. It neutralizes the sallow, aged tone in the skin around the nail, and makes the whole hand read cleaner and brighter. Second, and this is the part that stunned me, a blue undertone makes everything near it look whiter and fresher by contrast, the same way a blue-red lipstick makes teeth look whiter. On the hands, a true blue-red makes the skin look more luminous, less yellow, less tired, almost lit from within. Old Hollywood used cool red on their leading ladies, precisely because it made a mature hand look youthful and radiant on camera. They knew. They just didn't tell the rest of us. And here's the betrayal that ties this whole thing together. As those glamorous, cool reds fell out of fashion advice for older women, we were steered, decade by decade, toward the muddy, the neutral, the warm brown, the safe. The blue-red got recast as too bold, too much, not age-appropriate, the very phrase that was designed to shrink us. The single most flattering, most scientifically youth-restoring shade for an aging hand was quietly relabeled as inappropriate for the women who needed it most. We were handed brown and beige and told it was maturity, while the shade that actually turns back the clock sat right there in the archive, proven under the harshest lights ever pointed at a human hand. So the 7th shade, the finale, the one I want you to try this week, is a true blue-based red. A cool, clear red with that hint of blue underneath. Not brick, not orange red, not brown red. When you shop for it or hunt through your drawer, do this simple test. Hold the bottle against something pure white, like a sheet of paper. If the red looks like it leans toward orange or rust, it's a warm red, put it back. If it looks crisp, a little cool, like the red of a fresh cherry or a ripe raspberry, that's your blue-red. That's the Hollywood shade. Paint it on, hold your hand up to the light, and watch your skin look cleaner and younger in real time. It's the closest thing to magic I've found, and it's been hiding in plain sight since 1952. And if you can only remember one thing from everything I've told you, remember this principle underneath all 7 shades, because once you understand it, you'll never need me to hand you a color again. Aging skin drifts warm and yellow and gray. So the shades that make it look younger are the ones that lean the other way, cool and clean and clear, canceling the yellow, adding back the light, and never, ever drawing a harsh dark border or a glittering outline around the parts of your hand that show your years. Rose beige, cool clean red, dusty lavender, milky sheer pink, warm creamy coral, soft berry, and the blue-based red that Hollywood knew all along. 7 shades, one idea, decades of bad advice undone. I think about that champagne photograph from the wedding sometimes, the one where my hand looked gray and old and beaten. I don't feel embarrassed by it anymore. I feel grateful, because it made me angry enough to go digging, and digging is how I found everything I just gave you. That faded hand in the photo wasn't old. It was obedient. It was doing exactly what the beige rule told it to do. And the day I stopped obeying, I got my hands back. That's really what this is about, isn't it? Not nails, not polish. It's about refusing to disappear on schedule because someone decided a woman past 60 should fade into the furniture. I don't believe elegance has an expiration date, and I don't believe there's a shade in this world that's too alive for a woman our age. The rules were written to make us quiet. We're allowed to write our own now. So here's what I want from you, and I mean it. Don't just nod and click away. I want you to tell me one thing in the comments. Which shade shocked you the most? Was it the lavender that cancels the yellow? Or was it finding out that dark burgundy you thought was so elegant has been aging your hands this whole time? Tell me. Write it down below, one sentence, right now, because I read them and because the women in this comment section are teaching each other more than any beauty counter ever taught us. Don't stay silent. Silence is the thing they wanted from us in the first place. And if you're one of those women, the ones who are done being handed rules written to make you smaller, then stay with me. This is a gathering place for women who see straight through the old advice and are quietly taking their elegance back, one truth at a time. Because I have a next one already waiting for you, and it's about the single most aging color mistake we make with our clothing, a color half of us are wearing right now believing it's flattering, when it's doing the exact opposite of what we think. I found where that rule came from too, and once you see it, you'll clean out one whole section of your closet. I'll see you there. Bring your hands. They look 10 years younger already. Now look at your hands one more time. What I showed today was just the overview inside the ageless elegance circle. I take it further, right where we stopped. You can ask me your own question, and a real person, me, answers you myself, never a machine. You'll belong among thousands of stylish women just like you. Point your phone's camera at the code on the screen, and you can cancel anytime. Now that your hands look younger, let's do the same for your whole look. Right here I'll show you the necklines that take years off your face, and the 3 you'll want to avoid. Let's begin.